Welcome to All Things Retreat podcast. I'm Holly Porter, your host and CEO of Retreat R&R. With over 25 years of experience in designing transformative retreats, I'm here to share insights and inspiration to help you create extraordinary experiences. Whether you're a pro or just starting out, you'll find valuable ideas here. Enjoy the ride. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the show today, everyone. Hopefully that you've joined us before, and if it's your first time, then double welcome. We're glad that you're here. We talk about all things retreat here, and we are sponsored by International Retreat Association, which is a new association and the only one of its kind in the industry of retreats. So if you want to check that out, it's internationalretreatassociation.com. Really long name, but we are going to be interviewing Roxanne Chaput, and she's a leadership steward supporting founders, executives, and visionaries in strengthening the inner architecture beneath how they lead, relate, and move through responsibility. Her work employs emotional intelligence, embodiment, relational depth, and multidimensional leadership, guiding leaders towards deeper internal congruency and human connection. Welcome to the show, Roxanne.
Such a pleasure being here, Holly. I'm excited.
So we're going to have a great conversation. I already know because we've been chatting way before, and she's going to bring us all her leadership experience and great stuff. You said you were more in the corporate world, right?
Yeah. About several years ago, that's, before I had my first near-death experience, I was in the corporate world and, working as an executive and working in executive leadership teams. And it's fascinating. Like, it was beautiful, but there was also a piece that was missing in terms of what I came here to agree to align with in terms of how I would, become a servant leader.
Yeah. And just so y'all know, since some of you know I had a near-death experience during COVID. So that just came up in our conversation. So I thought, oh, that's a great connection that we have together as well, because I think a lot more people have had near-death experiences than we think, and good for us. I guess good that we survived, I should say.
Yeah, amazing that we survived.
Yeah, no kidding. There were many days I should have never survived. So I'm here, and this is part of the whole journey of what we're doing. So I appreciate you coming in and helping that come true here. But okay, got some questions. You ready?
Yeah, absolutely, Holly. Let's do this.
Okay. So retreats are often described as transformational spaces. From your perspective, what creates true transformation versus a temporary inspiration? That's a deep question to start out with.
I love that because, so many times, like through the retreat space, you kind of hear a little bit more of like retreat weekend warriors where they go and they get like a little bit of that inspirational aspects. And, it does obviously change, a degree of their life of how, their perception is or how their perspective forms afterwards, or, the introspection that kind of happens with that. But again, like the transformation piece isn't really, expanding from there. It's more of, a momentary thing or a monthly thing. And then, behavioral patterns start to revert back into the old way of living because that's where the comfortability is. And when we go through transformative experiences, it's something that changes within us. And it's something that once you see something different or experience something differently and something differently, opposed to just, feeling it, but not really allowing that integration piece to happen, it's very easy to revert back to the old ways of being. But when you know something different, and you feel something different and that integration piece happens, you can never go back to the same way of living and the same way of being. And I'm sure, even just through our own near-death experiences, once you know something greatly different, you can't revert back to old ways of being. And that is a huge difference of, transformative experiences opposed to more inspirational experiences. So when we're going through, retreat process, it's really important for the leader as well, is that they've done the integrative process. They've done the integrative work to be able to go through their own transformative process so that they can be able to embody and to teach from that perspective and not just from perception or perspective or from woundings or experiences, but to
Right.
actually go through the integral process of where they've come through into the retreat space. And that's the differentiator.
Yeah. So I just came back from an event that the International Association, Retreat Association sponsored, and they were, I have to be honest, they were poo-pooing the word transformation and how overdone and overused, and I understand where they were coming from. However, you and I know a little deeper transformation when you've had a near-death experience, right? I can't think of a different word other than that to explain maybe. And I feel like I probably should have spoke up, but I didn't. I just was listening and kind of absorbing everything that was being said. But I feel like anyone who is attending in a retreat is going for some kind of transformation. Otherwise, why would you go? Like if you just want to go hang out with girls, go on a girls trip.
They're
But
looking
what are
for
your
that.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, and they're looking for, deep restoration. They're looking for regeneration, and they don't know how to vocabularize that. They're just looking for the experience to be able to embody it so that they can understand it and then understand what that actually is. And I think there is some nuances where we want to, think of words of like inundation and that we utilize it too much, but in reality transformation is the transformation. Like
Yeah.
what you go through is the transformative process, and like we can put nuances around it, and we can put
Yeah.
make it so that it's just the communal language that happens in retreat spaces,
Mhm.
but it has been the language because that's what happens in
Yeah.
a true retreat space, is that you're going to go through a deep transformation. You're going to go through reconnection to yourself, remembrance of yourself, regeneration of yourself, and the regenesis of yourself.
Yeah.
And that inform goes through a rebirthing process. So
Yeah.
when you're leaving a retreat space, the person that you've come in to be is coming into a higher alignment when you're leaving that retreat space, because you understand and you have a deeper understanding of who you are and what your purpose and your intentionality is here. And that is the transformation of just the mindset. That's the
Yeah.
shift.
Funny you say shift. So my book is called Near Death Shift, and it's surrender, hope, intuition, faith, and transformation. So I always say, the first letter is S and the last is the T, which is surrender and transformation. And I feel like you can't have one without the other, because in order to get your transformation, you need to surrender at some point for the change, for the transformation, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And
yeah.
I think, that surrender piece, Holly, that you're touching on is that, a lot of times we go through life and we're very much into a patriarchal, energetic framework of like doing, progressing, hustling, and all of these things in terms of our mentality. So to learn how to come into our feminine energy, of that feminine patterning of our own holistic energy,
Yeah.
and to be able to come into a place of deep surrender and receptivity, that is a huge place where transformation happens. When you go through a dark night of the soul or through a transitional process, you need to be able to surrender, and that refractory period happens less, less, and less, and less, the more that you allow yourself to evolve and to grow and to expand through change, right?
Yeah.
That's part of the evolutionary growth of the soul. So when we learn to surrender, we're saying, I trust my path, regardless if I know everything that's happening around me or why things
Mhm.
are, coming apart so that they can maybe be rebuilt to be even better. I also have to surrender that I'm trusting my path and where I'm being guided. And that's where that trustability comes in as well with the surrender.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, many retreat leaders, I feel like that they're holding space for others, but they're privately navigating their own burnout and fragmentation, which is this whole industry has so much fragmentation. What wisdom would you offer someone like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we, owning a business, as you also own a business and leading other businesses as well, you see that the leadership is, the pivotal piece of how an organization is ran and the cultural dynamic that is created from that. That also translates into a leadership space. So if I am leading from a fragmented place, from a place of
Mhm.
burnout, I'm not able to be able to give my vulnerability
Mhm.
of not from a wounded place, but from a place that has been healed. And when we're not, conducting a retreat from places of
Yeah.
being self-healed, we're also leaking, and we're leaking that energetic like vibrational frequency
Hmm.
into the retreat space. And, the nuances of our words, the way that we calibrate ourselves, the way that we interact, the way that we open in terms of vulnerability without dumping onto other people, that's a huge thing in terms of energetic transference that happens, right? When we think about, I've hosted a lot of silent retreats. Silent retreats is about being able to hold the space, to hold the embodiment, to allow somebody to go through their own self-reflection and their own introspection, but also being able to support and guide them through further, inquisition within themselves. And that is the
Yeah.
space of a leader, not to model it, but to steward and to guide it.
Yeah. Well, I've said on this show several times before with other guests that you probably should never teach something that you haven't come through yet. When you're in the
That's,
middle, it's same with speaking. I'm a speaker.
yeah.
Don't get on stage until you've found the solution for yourself. Don't teach something until you're out the other end. First of all, you don't know how you're going to fall apart. You don't know how you're going to handle it. I mean, the worst thing probably that could happen is you be at a retreat and you're in doing some big deep work with people and then you fall apart when you're
And
supposed
you're,
to be holding that space.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
you're in trigger state, right? You're not in
Yeah.
activation state.
Yeah.
So the space of a retreat should be activation, right? We're looking to
Hmm.
activate their highest alignment. We're looking to activate their soulful body, the emotional body, the mental
Yeah.
body, the physical being, right? So when we are going into states of triggering, now we are in a state of wounded, like
Yeah.
we're in our fight or flight because we're going into a wounded pattern of behavior, right? So when we think about, even speaking or what we tend to do in terms of teaching, and the evolvement of that is that we need to understand and fundamentally know what our own self mastery is. So to be able to walk that path, not to be able to speak from that path, but to be able to have walk from that path, to be able to teach from that path, and then to be able to embody that path in our teachings. And
Yeah.
that is, the quality and the depth of the differentiation between retreat leaders, those that have actually walked the path,
Hmm.
those that have only read about the path or have had, some type of tangibility or tactileness to the path, and
Yeah.
then people that have actually immersed themselves into the path and actually have been through the integration process of the path and know what it takes to get to the other side. That's what a retreat is. It's meant to
Mm-hmm.
bridge something of where they are to be able to be where they want to be. So when we are able to be in that space, right, as a leader, then we can bring them to the other side of the bridge, and
Yeah.
that life transforms from there.
Yeah.
And their own self work ends up expanding from there and unfolding from there. Obviously their own choice and their own will, but that is the intentionality of a retreat.
Yeah. Well, there's so much nervous system deregulation right now, or that needs to be regulated. I just found out the other day, I thought it was so interesting why I didn't know this before, that pickers, meaning like I'm a picker, if I have skin, I'm
Yeah.
going to pick it.
Yeah.
Um, I know that's a weird thing, but I didn't know that that is a nervous system deregulation. And I was like, that makes so much sense. And I kind of learned it from my dad. My dad's a huge picker, he'll
Yeah.
pick scabs, he'll pick, whatever. His fingers are always a mess. And I was like, okay, maybe some of that's a learned behavior. But I thought, wow. I mean, I know because I have long COVID from all my issues, I
Yeah.
know that my nervous system's shot, and I've got to constantly be working on it and doing things to regulate it. So the question I had around that was just a little side note, that we're seeing more retreats centered around healing and spirituality and nervous system regulation, along with conscious leadership. Why do you think humanity is craving these experiences right now?
Because they're disconnected from themselves. They're disconnected from their soul essence, and they're disconnected from their emotional body, their mental body, and their physical body. And, a lot of people will challenge me on this, but I said, look at yourself in the mirror and tell me, objectively, what do you see and what do you witness and what do you pull apart and what do you segregate and what do you have divisiveness within yourself? And, if you do something, how do you address yourself? How do you speak to yourself? All of these components come in together in how we are disconnected to ourselves. In reality, we are love. We are peace. We are neutrality. We are beauty. And when we have all of these things that have been conditioned or inherited, and all of these patterns of behaviors and belief systems and core values, and we allow that to dictate who we are and create separation within us. When you think about, a young child, you've raised 8, I've raised 3 and I've adopted 2, like there's a piece when you see children, like children absolutely adore themselves. They love
Yeah.
themselves, especially little girls will look at themselves in the mirror and they think they're the best thing since sliced bread.
Yes.
But then as they progress, right, that divisiveness, that separation from themselves happens. And as boys, the emotional body gets separated, soulful bodies get separated. You can't express yourself this way, you can't express joy this way. You have to have societal, normalizations that have to be conducted. So all of these things create divisiveness and separation. And then you
Mhm.
had an hustle mentality on top of everything that you always have to be constantly moving, going. You can never be in a state of rest without guilt. You can never be in a state of flow without, some type of bracing of something going to happen. So when
Yeah.
we have all this divisiveness that's happening within us, we are looking for unity. The soul is asking for unity. It's asking to come back together, to lead with love, to lead with peace, to lead with inner fulfillment, joy, and happiness, and bring those elements in. Still feel our emotional body, still go through the densities of life, have sadness, have anger. All of these things are really important, but to come back to a place of regulation and centralization within ourselves and harmonization, we're looking for harmony. We're looking for
Mm.
liberation, harmony. We're looking for identity. A lot of the times what happens is the soul has cravings, it has desires. It wants to have security. It wants to have stability. It wants to have community. It wants to have love. It wants to have identity. It wants to have all of these things so that it can be calibrated. It wants to have purpose, right? All of these things is what brings people into these retreat spaces because their soul is guiding them to this. Their intuitive knowingness is guiding them, saying, hey, there's something that isn't right here. How
Mm.
can we bring this into alignment? And that's why they'll have resonance with something that can bring them back into the holistic self.
Yeah. Mm. Okay. How do you personally navigate conversations when there are strong emotional triggers or ideological differences?
Yeah, I think there's always going to be ideological differences. I mean, upbringings, the way that our perceptions
Mhm.
are formed, our beliefs are formed, our core values are formed. But I also know that truth is paradoxical. Your truth is your truth. My truth is my truth. My experiences are my experiences. Your experiences are your experiences. And the intentionality is never to curate my truth as somebody else's truth or for somebody
Mhm.
else to embody my truth. And
Right.
I deeply respect that. And I think there needs to be a respect for that. It's not about ego. It's not about wanting to be right or that there's only one way. As humans, we want there to only be one way, right? We only want there to be one truth, one reality, but that's not the truth of life. There's many different truths that exist out there, but how can we mutually respect somebody else's path and somebody else's experiences? But also, we can also show each other different things. We can show each other different perspectives and we can offer different, purviews and belief systems and patterns that are more that can serve them. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But you also have to be willing and you also have to have openness. But my job is not to control the narrative or to push somebody to believe something that isn't in their core value to believe that. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Agree to disagree if all else fails.
Yeah. Agree
What
to
do you
disagree,
think?
right?
Yeah, yeah. What do you think creates trust quickly inside of a retreat environment?
I think the way that someone holds energy, the stability of their energy, the groundedness of their energy, and the presence of their energy, to know that they are present, that someone feels valued, that they feel seen, that they feel heard, that builds trust very quickly, right? When we come in with humility and we come in with empathy and compassion and love and truth, right? And truth of if I see a pattern of behavior, I will gently nudge them and guide them to look at that pattern of behavior and to be able to speak honestly with them for their highest good.
Yeah.
Never at a place of judgment, never at a place of, that there's hierarchy in terms of energy or spirituality. There isn't, right? We are all the same. We all have different gifts and embodiments. What you have gifts and embodiments with,
Mhm.
those are things that you bring into retreat spaces. What I have gifts and embodiments, that's what I bring into retreat spaces. So building trust and knowing that there is a safe space and a confidential space that they can share and they can open in terms of their vulnerability, that
Yeah.
allows trust to quickly develop.
Yeah. What's a practice that you do during a chaotic season that helps keep you grounded?
Honestly, I love being on my mat and doing deep somatic movement and deep breath work. Like I do a lot of breath work, more meditative breath work, not meditation, more meditative breath work that I come right into my soul self. And I learn how to maneuver my body to release things that are also into the physical body. Like everything that happens in our life comes through our energetic field and it hits our physical being, it hits our emotional being, our mental being, all of it, right? Everything is interconnected. So I'm very cognizant that I know when I need to clear something. If I become destabilized or I feel off center and I don't feel inner peace, or I'm feeling anxiousness, or I feel, a lot of fears that are starting to perpetuate, I know that I am not centered in that now moment. I know that I need
Mm,
to be truthful with myself, and I know that I need time to just ground myself back
yeah.
into my reality and not the energetic transference that's happening in the world, not everybody else's worries and fears. And as an empath, a lot of times we filter those emotions through our own body, no matter what is happening around us, right? So
Yeah.
I have discernment of knowing where my energy, starts, where my energy ends, where somebody else's energy starts, and where somebody else's energy ends. And that's really a pivotal thing for me.
Yeah. I love recently I'm way more into senses, our five senses. And I've noticed when I pay attention to like, what I'm seeing, what I'm smelling, what I'm hearing, what I'm touching, like really, I mean, when I was in the hospital for my 70 days, there was several times I had no senses. I lost all five senses.
Yeah.
And so I was happy when they put me in a coma. I was like, yeah, wake me up when it's over. But
Yeah.
I realize now how important our senses are. And I think when we lose just one of those, they say it heightens others, but it's like, wow, if we could pay attention to all of those, I think like even in a meditation and thinking about that and being cautious of our smells in our houses and just different things. I don't know. Those have been thoughts that I've had come up in the last few days recently. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really going to pay more attention to that. So
I love how I just love how the universe and energy works, because I'm literally writing a piece right now about our sensorial intelligence and like how our senses and our sensuality and all of these things are like critical, right? And
yes.
so I love that we're kind of touching on this, but our sensorial intelligence is so vast and it's so interconnected, but it's interconnected with everything. And that's how we intuitively also, when we channel or when we, have transmissions or when we have information that just pops into our mind or into our field, all of these things are through our sensorial body, right? So
Yeah.
to be able to smell that something is slightly different, or a smell that you're like, that's connected to something that happened prehistorically, all of these things are there for us to keep healing that through
Yeah.
also, right? Through the
Yeah.
sensory bodies. Hearing and the way that we see things, the way that we smell things, taste things, the way that we energetically feel things, not even just the physical body of the
Mhm.
sensation, but how we feel, how energy changes around us. You enter a room, someone has good energy or they don't have good energy. All of those things are always giving us information, and they're dialogue and communication to us at every given moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Well, okay. I know we could probably talk about all this forever because I get way into this stuff. I'm sure our listeners are like, what? So I'm going to put all your information to contact you in our show notes so our listeners can go
Absolutely.
find you. And any last words that you would like to share?
I'd love to just say that, if you're feeling called to go within yourself and to discover yourself even more, and to, remember pieces of yourself that you feel maybe you've lost along the way, that these are the spaces that allow you to have those moments of reflection. And, no one here is here by accident, and everything is intentional. So, find purpose wherever you feel that resonance with.
I love that. That's a great way to end. Well, thank you so much, Roxanne, for
Thank you,
being
Holly.
a great guest and having some of the hard questions that we go deep on, and sometimes there's just never enough time.
I know. Thank you,
uh,
Holly.
and everybody, we'll see you on the next show. I hope you enjoyed. Bye for now. Thanks for joining us on this episode of All Things Retreat. We hope you're leaving with new ideas, fresh inspiration, and the motivation to take your retreats to the next level. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It helps us grow and reach more retreat leaders like you. And if you have any questions, topics you'd like us to cover or just want to say hello, send us an email at info@weretreatrnr.com. Follow us on social media to stay connected and catch all the latest updates. Until next time, remember, great retreats start with great intentions. Let's make them extraordinary, one step at a time. Thinking about hosting a retreat? Before you dive in, let's make sure you're really ready. Grab your free Are You Retreat Ready checklist and find out if you've got everything in place from your purpose and pricing to your audience and agenda. Don't guess. Get clear. This quick checklist will show you exactly where you stand and what you need to make your retreat a success. Click the link below in the show notes to grab your gift and take the first step toward hosting with confidence.